God, I love that song. Welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. My name is Charlie McGrath. Hour number 2 on this 5th day of December, Wednesday. We got back on the program now, Greg Mannarino, and I'm really happy to get him back on here because he's always a very interesting interview. True Renaissance man. He's in the world of finance now, but he's also a practitioner, a nurse practitioner, which is fascinating because obviously he's very, very educated in a lot of different fields, and it's fun to talk with him because during the breaks and stuff, because of all the medical stuff that you guys know I've been through recently. So, but anyway, we're going to bring Greg on here in just a minute because there's tons and tons and tons of financial stuff that I want to get into. In fact, Greg, let me just bring you on now. I was going to do a bit of a mini rant again to finish off the last hour about this fiscal cliff, but let me just bring you on now. Greg Mannarino. God. Why? I practice it in front of the mirror. Mannarino, over and over again, and I butcher it every time. Greg, welcome to the program. It's great to have you back on here.
Great to be here. Thank you so much.
And where is your website? I mean, not your website, your YouTube channel. How can I find it?
Oh, it's simple. It's a market report. Just either you can put that in one word or my name, and you'll find me. My website is down. It got shut down. Isn't that funny?
Well, you sent me that message, and I wanted you to kind of expose that a little bit. So go ahead and tell us, because your website is where we could go to get your books and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, well, you can get my books in several places, but yes, GregoryMannarino.com is gone now. And not only is that gone, but I had a nice little social website going too. I had a couple of thousand people that were members. It was free. It was really to set up kind of people with a like mindset together to think about these kinds of issues, but that's gone too. They took both of them off. Yeah, isn't that great? I guess I'm on their hit list now. I don't know.
What do you mean? What do you mean they're gone? How are they gone? What happened? Was it the Christmas or was it the Thanksgiving Day Homeland Security 132 site shutdown, or how did it get shut down?
Well, I didn't even know they were shut down. All of a sudden, I started getting emails from a lot of friends of mine and people that follow me. They're like, Greg, where are your sites? I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, your sites are gone. Your social website's gone. Your regular website's gone. I'm like, it's gone. They're like, yeah. And then I talked to my technical guy. He looked into it. He's trying to figure out what's going on. Either way, I'm trying to get a new site going. I've been their target before. I had my YouTube channel shut off once. I've been hacked on YouTube. I haven't had a fun run with my experiences with this so far. I don't think.
Well, I don't understand. I mean, you're not. I mean, you're not out here any more controversial, should I say, than a lot of us. I mean, how come you're the ire of someone's targeting?
I wish I could tell you. I don't. I hope it's going to be different. I mean, I haven't had – well, that's not really true. I've been having a lot of problems with YouTube over the past couple of weeks too. I can't upload videos. I don't know if it's me or if it's them or what it is. You're right. I don't say anything. I think that's too out there. I just try to keep the people that follow my blog, up to date with what's going on in the markets, actually ahead of the markets, letting them know what they should be doing, thinking about doing with their cash. To create wealth here, and not be fleeced as we move forward. We understand what's going on. It's a terrible situation, and I think people need to protect themselves. That's why I'm doing this whole thing. I mean, that's really it. It's terrible.
Well, you got somebody that and maybe it's somebody that competes with you in your day job. Who knows? But I
know. I feel bad because I know a lot of people that enjoyed using my social site they got left out to dry, and I apologize for that. But there's nothing I can do about it at this point.
Well, I hope you can. I hope you can get a new server that's a little bit more secure, or maybe a new host that's a little bit more secure, I should say, and get that up and running again.
Mm. We'll figure it out.
Let me ask you about this. I'm going to jump topics here a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the fiscal cliff. Obviously, it's in the since the election. This is the thing. Since the election, I've been on, I don't know, probably a half a dozen, maybe a dozen other programs, and I'm surprised that most people, and it's not. I'm not trying to denigrate anybody here, but most people. They don't understand what the fiscal cliff's all about, and that's been the number one question when I go on these other programs or podcasts or something is, what is the fiscal cliff? What's it all about? And obviously it's a brilliant marketing tool that we see being talked about right now. But as we explained in the last hour, what it was all about, what these automatic triggers are going to mean and that kind of thing. I'm going to break it down and make it real simple. My opinion of this, and I'm going to get yours on it. It's all about giving the fewer and fewer people in government, getting rid of representative government, more representative government, getting rid of more freedom, and giving power to fewer and fewer people. That the raising of the debt ceiling is absolutely the number one goal of the fiscal cliff debate. I believe the number two goal, which is closely tied to it, is taking that ability away from Congress to ever have the say over the debt of this nation again. Everything else, your taxes are going to go up. The job market's going to seize up. Everything else is secondary, but it's obviously being put out there as the primary reasons we need to act on this. But I think the real agenda, the real goal behind the fiscal cliff is to, usurp more of your freedom. What is your take on this?
I'm absolutely certain that's true, and we're seeing what's going on here on a global level. And I think it's very dastardly what they're doing here. They understand that here in the United States, this is something I've been going over for a very, very long time. We're going to start to have austerity, and taxes are going up, not just for the richest people in this country, but for everyone. There's no doubt about it. And I've been over this as well, and you know this. I don't care what they do, how many taxes, how much they want to raise taxes, or who they want to raise them on. It's not going to solve the problem. And we are now, without a doubt, ever closer to the fiscal end. Forget about the fiscal cliff. I mean, they can try to kick this can down the road all they want. It's not going to stop what is coming. We have hit a critical mass. And again, they can try whatever they want. They can try to brainwash more and more people thinking that they have some type of solution to this. There is none. We are now at the literal end of the ability to acquire any more debt. Meanwhile, they keep acquiring more debt. And there's something else I've been talking about for a long time, as you are well aware. This Operation Twist is ending soon, and they're going to initiate QE4. QE4 is more outright in our faces bond buying purchases, and they're not going to call it QE4 because most people don't even understand what QE3 was. Mortgage-backed securities. Now they're going to buy treasury bonds. They have to. Yeah. I think what people need to understand here, Charlie, is they could not be more desperate than they are at this time, and they're doing everything that they can to try to keep people's eye off the ball, try to keep people believing that the United States is immune to the problems that are engulfing the world at this time. Everything that we're seeing over in Europe is coming here to the United States, although much worse, much, much worse. And the more money that they print, the more they're going to erode investor confidence. We already understand that the Federal Reserve is the lender of last resort, and they're going to print into oblivion. Why? Because cash is going out of style. That's why, in the literal sense. And they're going to we've seen this throughout history many, many times. And once investor confidence is sucked out, which they're losing it now, we already understand the U.S. dollar is losing its reserve status. They're going to start dumping these dollars, Charlie, and this is my biggest fear. And then all those dollars are going to come rushing back here to the United States when people dump them. They don't want them. They realize they're losing purchasing power. They're going to dump them. And then our cost of living is going to go to the moon here. We're going to see massive inflation. Nothing is going to change. People, right now, I think what they're trying to do with this gold and silver smackdown, which is absolutely engineered, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have a falling dollar over the last several days, and we have metal selling off. Are you kidding?
And a spike since the election, an unprecedented spike in gold purchasing since the election. It is absolutely it is the absolute quintessential picture snapshot of if you want to see how markets are manipulated, or make an illustration of how markets are manipulated. Falling dollar, record purchasing, and yet gold and silver are getting smacked down. It makes no sense. Greg, hang tight. I want to talk more about this on the backside of this break. We have Greg Mannarino. God, that's it. I quit. That's it. We're going to be back in a few minutes. Hang tight. Welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath. I am your host, and I got look at the guys on JTV. I got it broke down here. Greg Mannarino. I've got it hyphenated. Here's the deal. Hooked on Phonics worked for me. Mannarino is our guest tonight. We're going to continue this conversation for another 45 minutes. If you have questions you want to call in and ask Greg as far as what he recommends you should do if you have wealth you're trying to protect, please do. 877-342-6673 is our call-in number. Gary keeps a close eye on if we have a caller waiting or not. All right, I want to continue the conversation a little bit. We talked about fiscal cliff, and we talked. You started talking a little bit about Europe in there, and I said this briefly in the first hour. If you ask me where we're at, we look at the language that was coming out in 2008 about Europe. Look at the language of the politicians there. Look at the demeanor. Look at their attitudes toward their populace. And really, that's how they view it. They're populist in 2008, and it was an attitude of austerity. That's when we heard the first words, austerity. 2009. I remember making videos saying, "Look, that's going to be the word of the day or the word of the year in 2010 is austerity." And this is the language that was brought to the people of Europe. And look what's happened over there since then. Now, you really do have to look outside, the pop culture media here, the gladiator games of the day. But the people of Europe, man, they're suffering, and they're suffering far, far greater than we realize here in the United States, especially in Southern Europe. And this is exactly the same language we hear in this country now. But Greg, I mean, do you see that parallel there? Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. And, I've been saying that for the longest time. People are going to have to wake up soon, and they're going to get blindsided by this, Charlie. There's no doubt about it. I do not believe, I think probably less than 5%, and that may be too high of a number, is ready for what's coming, or even in the mindset for what is coming. They think everything is fine, and, our policymakers have their interest in their minds, and this is absolutely not true. They're not going to allow any of these financial institutions, we already understand that, to take one bit of pain. They're going to give it to everyone else. All the people are going to suffer. They're going to get austerity. The way of life that we've come to know here in the United States is about to change radically. I couldn't be more certain about that. We are in the middle of a transition period of where people are going to be absolutely fleeced. They are going to lose everything they've worked for. It's very scary. This scenario, I believe, is going to unfold rapidly, and people are going to be again blindsided and frightened, and people are going to revolt. I think it's going to get that bad. I mean, again, we're not being allowed to see what's really going on over in Europe, like you said. It's a media blackout. If people really understood, I have European friends that I speak to almost every day, and I hear from them firsthand. Greg, you don't know what it's like over here. Guys that are in finance that I know, they're like, forget it. Whatever you think is going on, it's much worse. And I'm certain that we're going to see that here in the United States within a very short period of time. And people need to prepare themselves for that. That's this transition, this transfer of wealth, because that's really what this is all about. And people are going to have to endure horrible austerity, and right here in the United States, they're not going to allow the financial institutions to take a haircut. That's the truth.
It is absolute truth. And if there's any doubt, man, remember, just and part of the time, Greg, that's what I think my job is to not to do anything more than help people remember, just not I'm not going back to the Civil War or 1913 or 71 or any of those other dates that are pivotal in the loss of freedom in this country. Just remember the hat in hand, doughy-eyed look that the bankers had in their face when they went before Congress in 2008 saying, we got to have it, please help us, bail us out. That was the soft tyranny portion of this program. The soft tyranny began in 2008. These criminals, in my opinion, these scumbags, they never blinked. They sat there. They got what they had. Hank Gunslinger Polson go in and demand and take, and he got it. He got it, man. He got the brass ring. These companies,
they always do that. They use fear. They use fear as a weapon against the people. And they're doing the same thing. That was a setup. The crash of 2008 was a setup. It was a setup to transfer wealth. The aggregate public here in the United States lost 38% of their net worth. This next crash, this next fleecing, which is it's a pump and dump, Charlie. That's all this is. I know what it's like. I know I've worked for one of the biggest firms that does not exist anymore on the face of the earth, Bear Stearns.
I can pick him. Okay.
I know what went on over there. Well, this is before all this nonsense, but I had friends that worked there. It's a terrible situation. It was set up, and they're setting it up again.
All right, that's what we're gonna start the next segment with.
Yeah.
Is the next setup, the next con. How will they shade it? How will they sell it to the people as an unavoidable event? We're going to be back in just a minute with Greg Mannarino and more Wide Awake News Radio. Hang tight, guys. Welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath along with Dan Mannarino, or Greg. Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's it. I'm calling my pharmacist. He's got me on. It's too many things here. And here, I'm going to explain why Dan, because the first time Greg was on, it's Mannarino, and it just reminds me of Dan Marino.
That's right.
That's how I was trying to remember it. Greg Mannarino. Okay, so we were talking about the staged collapse of 2007 or 2008 rather, the financial terrorist event known as the Great Collapse of 2008. This is completely. The evidence points to it, as far as my opinion goes, that the whole thing was set up, staged from front to back, because they were looking down the road, I believe. They were looking down the road at the true sovereign debt crisis. This was going to be the ultimate bubble. And it wasn't just a matter of grabbing everything they could in 2008. I think Paulson's key, and Geithner and Bernanke's and the financial elite's key goal was to set the pieces in place, because the public has a very short memory, set the pieces in place so when the sovereign debt crisis occurred, the failure was already legislated to go onto the backs of the people of the world. They walk away scot-free. They're sitting high and dry. And, the sovereign debt being sovereign debt is going to certainly affect the people and cause austerity, massive tax increase, loss of any true wealth that you may have. It will all be gone. It'll all be gone to pay the same bankers who brought us here in the first place. That's my opinion. And, Greg, I truly believe that's your opinion, too. So if this was a staged event in 2008, and you believe and I believe there's another staged collapse coming that will be, that will be, instead of a 30%, a 30% haircut that middle America. And I'm not just talking about the upper middle class or middle class. I'm talking all of America other than the elites. Everything you have is worth less. I mean, you've lost value. You've lost wealth in the last several years because of what these, in my opinion, criminals have done. They stage that. What are they going to? When is this one going to come? And what is going to be the percentage of loss that people are going to realize on average?
This is what I see happening here. And I started getting heavily into this stuff at the beginning of the .com bubble, when I became really interested in all this. They drive us from bubble to bubble. Now, what people don't realize, Charlie, and I hear this from people all the time, well, if the market went down and it crashed, how do people make money? What people don't understand is more money is created faster when on the downside than on the upside. It takes years and years, for example, to build up the Dow up until its high of 2008. That took decades. And how long did it take to drop? About a year, So for someone like myself, for example, I mean, I've been a trader for over 2 decades. I, for example, try always to get myself on the short end of the trade because more money is made faster that way now. They did the same thing in the .com bubble. Let's go back. When they created that bubble, and then what do they do? When they realize the market has topped out, they short it all on the other side, and they make more money faster. They did the same thing with leading up to 2008 with the whole mortgage-backed securities debacle with the home loans and all that nonsense. That was set up. That was a setup. They knew it was in a bubble. They fueled that bubble to the nth degree, and then when it burst, all the big banks, they all shorted. Let me say just something else here. People think that Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns, these were sacrificial lambs. Let's put it that way. These were part of the scheme. These institutions were allowed, with quotes, to go down for the public. All right? And this was all part of a scheme to create too big to fail, even bigger than before. And they're doing the same thing now. They've repumped up the equities, and they're unrealistically way overpriced. If you ever hear one of these talking heads on TV say, "Oh, well, stocks are cheap," based against what? Based against GDP? Based against what? Unemployment? It's incredible. So what they're doing is they've reinflated the bubble in equities, and when that bursts, they're going to short it all again on the other side. And it's all connected to the debt bubble, the biggest bubble, which includes the dollar, in the history of the world. When this bubble bursts, there's the transfer of wealth. Because people are going to go scrambling to get into real things, hard assets, gold, silver, crude, real things. And equities are going to sell off. And all that money that's going to come out of all that is going to look for a place to go. And that place is commodities. And that's why people need to get themselves in those positions. Or if you're savvy enough and you're going to short it all on the other side, you can do that as well. I mean, my portfolio is set up. I have short positions, I have long positions. I'm all over the place here, but I've been doing this a long time. I know how to protect my investments. But people need to get out of fiat, and this is something I go over all the time. I'm sure you do, to get away from this fake environment and get into real assets. And this is what people should have been doing for a very long time. The window is closing very rapidly, and people need to start thinking about that.
Yeah, I absolutely, and thinking about it is something that should have happened quite some time ago.
Yes.
And you're right. I mean, look, years and years to get it to what's the overall Dow high in 2007, 14,000 and change,
and then all of a sudden down to what, 6,500 in a matter of
6,500, yeah,
in a matter of a year and a half or so. Think about it. Think about the wealth the cash, however you want to weigh this out, that was created when that fell. Most people got fleeced, but you see, what people don't understand is this cash or whatever it is does not go to money heaven. It goes in someone's pocket, and that's where it went. People got enormously wealthy from that, and they're going to do it again. That 38%, Charlie, of the wealth that was stolen from the American people went in someone's pocket. It doesn't disappear. There's always two sides of a trade. There's the long side and there's the short side. The people that were on the short side of that trade, think of the wealth that was created.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable, and they're going to do it again. And when the debt bubble bursts, this is how people can take advantage of this, is simply by holding precious metals, holding real things.
Yeah, no doubt. And in fact, it's a fact. I was going to say the argument can be made, but it's not an argument. It's a fact. When Lehman and Bears went down, it isn't like the elite money folks that were in those institutions. It isn't like they were held. A trial was held and they were put in prison. I mean, come on, man. They just were shuffled into these other institutions and they became bigger and bigger and bigger. And now in 2012, these handful of companies are. They're a far larger part of the economy than they were in 2007, and it's a joke. I mean, we have the presidential debate, and there's an hour and a half debate on the economy, and none of them talk about monetary policy, and when they do talk about the collapse of 2008, they talk about the virtues of Dodd-Frank and how they're getting Wall Street back under control. No, man, they're not. It is completely the opposite. It's 180 degrees from that. Wall Street is more in control now than they've ever been.
And this continue. Yes, and that's the whole thing. Wall Street rules the world. I don't care what anybody says. I know Wall Street. These people run the world. It's not run by presidents, kings, or queens. It's run by Wall Street. They get whatever they want whenever they want. They understood clearly what they were doing back in 2008 when they were packaging up these mortgages that they knew were worthless. and they were selling them off so that their hands were clean. They made their profit, and then they were betting against the same products they were selling, and no one got in trouble. It's incredible, and they're going to do the same thing again. They're setting this up again, Charlie, and this time is going to be much, much worse than it was time before. And again, it goes back to what I've been saying for a very, very long time. The middle class here, gone, finished. There's going to be a two-tier society. We're going backwards in time, back to when there were the haves and the have-nots. Middle class is finished because, unfortunately, most people who are part of the middle class are too tied up in their daily lives to pay attention to what's going on. I wish they would listen to shows like yours, Charlie, because you're making a difference out there by letting people understand what's going on.
All right, Greg, we're going to be back here in just a minute, but you're right. I was on Jeff's program the other night, and we were talking about this. Middle class is gone. There will be a remnant of the middle class that will be enforcing the uber elites' will onto the underclass. We're going to be back with Greg, more Wide Awake News Radio, in just a few minutes, guys. Hang tight. Guys, welcome back to the final segment on this 5th day of December, Wednesday. Greg Mannarino is our guest for this hour. And, Greg, I want to ask you, we were talking about the stage attack in 2008. Another one's on its way. And, you can take this wherever you want, but what is the catalyst and your timing? What is your timing of, do we go, if we follow history, do we go to the eve of the end of this presidency and then we do it all again, or do you think we're going to see it sooner than that?
It comes down to this. It comes down to investor confidence. It comes down to the loss of faith in the dollar as the world's reserve. We understand it's already losing that status. And they are going to do everything they can to prevent the dollar from losing that status. And if that means going to war again over that, because we've done this since Vietnam, the Vietnam War was created simply to vault the U.S. dollar to the world's reserve. We do not have a very good-looking future. And, as a timeline, I think a loss of confidence can come at any time. We already know, and this is the truth, that the Federal Reserve is now the lender of last resort. Who in their right mind would be looking to buy bonds? They don't unless you're looking. Well, if you think these are safe havens, but they're paying negative interest. They're paying. You don't earn any money. It's crazy. If you invest in a bond at this time, a U.S. Treasury bond, you're guaranteed to lose money because they're paying interest less than in the rate of inflation. It's absolutely insane.
And it's going to take. The safe haven, right? We saw that in 2008. The dollar was the safe haven. U.S. debt was the safe haven. In order to,
it's changed a lot since then because of Obama. We've doubled the debt.
Right,
and it's going to grow up much faster. They keep talking about it. Debt reduction. They can't reduce the debt. Every dollar that Bernanke prints to either stimulate or buy bonds, where does it go? It goes to the national debt.
That's right.
And who owes that? You and me and everyone else listening to the show right now.
Yeah, and it is truly in 2009, and I'm drawing from memory here, but I believe in 2009 when it had proven to be at a point mathematically impossible to pay down the debt, to pay off the debt. You ain't going to do it. You could draw in every dollar that is, that's in existence in the M1, the M2, the M3. Bring it all in, and there's not enough money there in order to pay off the national debt. And it's a self-feeding monster at this point.
Exactly. We've hit a critical mass. This is what I'm saying. I don't care what they do. They can try to smack down the price of gold, smack down the price of silver, do whatever they want. And this is being manipulated. They can't stop it. We are done, Charlie. The critical mass has been hit a while back. We're just waiting. We're waiting for the explosion. It's not too far off, in my opinion. If we stay on this current trajectory, we could literally be looking at months. That's the truth. And they're going to kick the can down the road as hard as they can until they can't kick it anymore, and they're getting close now.
Well, I find it interesting that daily we get reports on the fiscal cliff. This could still be used as a major catalyst in order to usher in the sovereign debt crisis, right? To usher in the next grab, the next financial terrorist attack, the next go in and clean out the rest of the stores. It certainly could. I mean, this fiscal cliff could be the linchpin. And what better scapegoat, right? What better scapegoat for Wall Street or these institutions to say, hey, American people, it's your fault. You elected these folks. They couldn't get the job done. They couldn't come together and make a decision. So we went off the fiscal cliff. It's not our fault. It's your fault. So just sit there and enjoy the austerity because it's coming. I mean, we can certainly see this.
Yep, that's it. People don't understand that. They think their way of life is going to stay what it is. It's not. It's going to change rapidly as we move forward here. They're not just going to raise taxes on the rich. They're going to raise them on everyone, and they're going to cut services across the board. And
look at the self-feeding nature of that. Look at the self-feeding nature of a downward spiral. And it's okay as long as and I'm not advocating this. I'm saying this is, I believe, the elite's point of view. It's okay if it only affects the rabble out there, right? And I'm talking about everybody. I'm not talking about this, the lower class. I'm talking about everybody from the upper middle class on down who thinks they have their finger in the game. You don't. As long as the pain that is coming affects the rabble, the population, it's okay. They can let this occur. And so when we see austerity coming, when you talk about social safety nets and services being cut, look at how that's going to compound. How it's going to be the realization that the only thing that's kept a recovery going over the last 4 years is nonstop money printing and nonstop stimulus spending, and all these events and actions have been taken in order. It's sold to us as it's being done on behalf of the people, but it isn't. It's being done in order to save institutions and to put the pieces in place so when it all comes flying apart, it's sovereign debt at that point, and welcome to hell.
Yeah, and that's the saddest part of this, because none of this had to happen. That just proves that this was a setup. If they would have just allowed natural market forces to take over, in other words, okay, everyone, you made bad bets, you have to, you're taking losses and that's it, we would have already been in some type of a real recovery. It would have been very painful, but we would have started real recovery. Now, because they chose to go the opposite way, they're making this much more, monumentally worse for the people. Honestly, Charlie, I don't think people have even the slightest idea of how bad this is going to get this time.
Most people think 2008 crisis is behind us. Most people think that's something that is in the past, and we've recovered from it. And unfortunately, most people think that anything that happens next won't have any direct correlation to what happened then. They're just going to think it's a whole new event, and it's not. It's all tied together.
It is. People's 401ks are going to get wiped out. Savings are going to get wiped out because people are going to have no purchasing power. This cannot end good. And for people that are not in real assets, if they're part of this, people are part of this whole scheme. If you're not in hard assets, then you're part of this whole scheme. And quite frankly, if you're that dumb, then you deserve to get fleeced in some way. But you need to wake up. And I would imagine that your listeners out there get it. And they're the ones out there that are going to be able to maybe make a difference in someone else's life. Because that's really, I really feel this, Charlie. I've been saying for the longest time, we're all responsible for each other to a certain degree. So you know what? Get out there and get heard. Start conversation with people. Let them understand what's going on. Start a YouTube channel like I did. And try to get the word out there. Let's get more people to get it. And by doing that, you're doing a good service to yourself and to people. It's just so important.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. In fact, that's the same reason I started my YouTube channel is the same reason you started yours. And
exactly.
And look at how many people you've that I haven't been to your channel in a while. I know you have over 6,000 subscribers, and you probably have a couple million people that have watched your videos. I mean, that is an impact, and it's certainly information you're never going to get. You're never going to get that from Kramer. You're never going to get the kind of information that you're putting out there from mainstream business media.
Yeah, I think that what we're doing is important, and I want more people to do it. I really think that like the people that are listening to this show really try to make a difference, try to understand these issues, and try to share them with other people. And if you can't get through to certain people, you won't be able to get through to everyone. Just move on to the next guy. I'm not trying to be cold here, but you can't save everyone. Some people can be saved that maybe just don't know what's happening. And if I don't know. I just think it's so important for us to all try to do that right now, because we've never been in a time like this ever in history. People don't realize that this is unprecedented, and people's lives are going to be affected greatly.
Absolutely. And by unprecedented, are you referring to the technological age that we live in, how we're all tied at the hip, regardless if it happens in
that's all part of it too. But I'm talking about a time where we're literally watching the fall of empires on a global level. The landscape of the world is changing. And it's going to be rapid. It's not going to be a slow burn. When this stuff really hits the fan, when people realize that it's all just a Ponzi scheme, that's it. That's the time when it all ends.
What do you think happens? We only have a couple minutes left, but what do you think happens? I mean, do you think we have? Do you see? There's predictions the United States breaks up into 7 little segments, and these little republics spring up. Could you see this across the world, or do you think we all buy into the new world order, single governance, financial governance from on high in Brussels or wherever it may be, and we sell ourselves into slavery? I mean, what do you think happens when it all hits the fan?
I don't think China is going to allow a one world government. China wants the world reserve currency. They want to. The United States here. We're going from a consumption based economy. We have to go to a production based economy like China, and China's going the opposite way. China's going from production to consumption. And we're seeing a kind of a role reversal here in a lot of ways. But they're going to do everything they can to prevent that from happening. And I think what's going to happen is they're already setting up the police state here in the United States. The police are being militarized. We have drones going to be flying over our heads. Maybe they're there now. and they're getting ready. They know for a fact there's going to be civil unrest across the board, right in the street outside of everyone's house. Even my new house that I'm in right now.
No doubt about it. I mean, you live in, I don't know what the unemployment rate is in Vegas right now, but I know you're the hardest, one of the hardest hit communities as far as the real estate is concerned.
It's terrible.
And it's going to get worse. I mean, and that's the thing. I've been in the building industry one form or another for over 20 years, and we are celebrating now these marginal tick up, from this time last year. But the truth, people preparing for the truth it doesn't exist. I know big companies, big corporations that could be positioning themselves for the storm that's coming, yet they're grabbing onto this phony good news that we're a half a point up from where we were this time last year. So obviously this is the road to recovery. It's insanity, and even people with a lot of money, it doesn't mean they're smart. I mean, they can still be susceptible to buying into the never-ending propaganda.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. And that's another part of it too. But because of that, the people that work for these companies are going to suffer too.
Absolutely, yeah. Because they're not, the people that have a chance to be awake and position themselves or company in order to survive. Yeah, you know what? There's going to be a lot of them that don't. Greg Mannarino on YouTube. That's the channel, right? Or no. What is it? It's Market Watch on YouTube, right?
Market Report, but you can put my name in there. You'll find me. I've done it before. So Greg Mannarino on YouTube or Market Report. Is that right? That's right.
All right, buddy. I appreciate you getting on here. We'll get you back on next month. Thanks for hanging out with me. Always an informative interview.
Thanks so much, but I love being here.
You bet. And enjoy your new program. Your new home, and say hello to the wife and the dogs. We'll see you next month.
Thanks.
All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. I appreciate you hanging out in the chat room tonight. Again, thank you all Rinse listeners. Thank you all listeners over on the Oracle Broadcasting Network. We will see you tomorrow night at the same time. Please enjoy Jeff Rinse because he is coming up next. Have a good night. Peace.